To me, Michael Zulli is a big part of the new studio. The original studio is Barry Windsor Smith, Jeffrey Catherine Jones, Bernie Wrightson, and William Michael Kaluta. I say the new studio because it's a spiritual succession of artists consisting of artists like Michael Zulli, Charles Vess. I'd put Neil Gaiman on that list, like the writing version of a romanticist. I'm sure there are many others that I'm not thinking of right now. But tonight, let's take a look at Michael Zulli. When he got into the business, he was already well into his 30s. He was making a small living drawing animals up until a friend told him about comic shops, fairly new in the 1980s. He got just the right books. Epic Illustrated number 16. That's the issue with Barry Windsor Smith drawing The Beguiled. And the other was Luther Arkwright by Brian Talbot. What a place to start. Michael decided that this was his kind of comic that he wanted to spend the rest of his life creating. Within a short time, he met Stephen Murphy, an employee of a local comic shop with similar ideals about bringing the quality to the comics table. They decided to collaborate on a story called Puma Blues that Murphy had already been working on. The comic was tailor-made for Zulli, who was already a master when it came to drawing animals. The book was published by Dave Sim, the creator of Cerebus and champion of self-publishing. He had started an offshoot of his company, Aardvark Vanaheim, and made a call out to the industry that if anyone wanted to have something published with zero editorial interference, he would publish it. Only the Zulli Murphy team took him up on this. I am one of the many who know him through his art. Puma Blues was one of the many books that made up a pantheon of mind and art altering experiences for me, coming along when I was ready to have my mind blown. That quote is from Carla Speed McNeil, the author and artist of Finder. A handful of issues had come out when Steve Geppi used Puma Blues as blackmail to force Dave Sim's hand on the distribution issue. We'll get into the details on that in a future video, as we want to focus on the Michael Zulli. Giving an early taste to the pair that not everything was good in comics, they released a benefit issue to raise awareness of their mistreatment by the industry. And I quote, "Alan Moore and Tim Truman were some of the artists who put pieces in. One of the contributions we received was from England, a first edition work of two then unknown artists named Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean. We did not know who they were, so we didn't use it. So yes, I own a first edition copy of Violent Cases. So think, we could have had a cover by Dave McKean." The first 20 issues were published by Aardvark One International. 21 through 23 were by Mirage Studios, run by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Murphy went on to write the All Ages Ninja Turtles under a pen name, that's Dean Clarane, and the pair collaborated on one of the darkest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles adult stories ever told, called Soul's Winter. And now a brief tangent. Michael was passionate about creativity and pursuing new experimental ways to express oneself. The following excerpts are from the Comics Journal 123 in an article about the Creator's Bill of Rights. And here I quote again. The centerpiece of the meeting will be the completion of the joint statement of intent. A preliminary version of this document was drafted at the meeting in Boston. And once again, I even further quote inside the quotes. Basically, we're going to see if we can agree on certain terms of conduct, said Bissett. We're not drawing up terms of war, unquote. Zulli agreed, calling the manifesto a personal set of standards to both protect and enhance the business. But he also sees the statement as a show of unity, which could help prevent a repeat of the Diamond Crisis. You have to be aware that you, as a self-publisher, are intensely vulnerable, he said. Zulli said the direct sales market was set up for the big two, Marvel and DC, to move product, and that it was difficult to sell an experimental work in the direct market. Other advantages to be gained through a different method of distribution, Zulli said, are the removal of the middleman and the opportunity for a work to be available indefinitely. Both, he said, would help lower the price for the customer on elaborate, expensive projects. We now return to the James E. Wamsey Show. Soul's Winter, the Michael Zulli TMNT trilogy, was celebrated by a passionate few but disliked by the buttoned-up types. But one of the fans was Neil Gaiman, who hired him to draw Sandman, issue number 13. The issue was very well received. There was even a Netflix episode adaptation of issue 13 alone. Now that story is the one where somebody wants to live forever. So the Sandman grants that wish, and he checks back with him every 100 years. And sometimes he's very successful. Other times his life has gone horribly wrong because immortality is a very hard state, is the theory that Gaiman would presuppose there. He also went on to draw the rather controversial Swamp Thing 88, which was banned at the time, causing writer Rick Veitch and Zulli to leave the company. Interesting enough, DC released the once forbidden story this very year, 2026. Somewhere around that time, Steve Bissett and Zulli were set to do a book called The Little Brothers. This is speculation on my part, but I believe it was doomed by the collapse of Tundra, Eastman's publishing company. I was looking at the Noodles sketchbook, which was released by Tundra earlier, and there was a few drawings from that project in there, but there was no substantial information to go along with it. Nor was there information to go along with the next project that never came out. Speaking of things that never happened, this video has quite a few images from Sweeney Todd, a project meant for serialization in Taboo and written by Neil Gaiman as well. Unfortunately, Taboo also collapsed before it went to print. And he was sworn in Noodles not to discuss the project, just show some of the visual sketches that he was working on in his sketchbook. The one project I missed out on was called Fracture of the Universal Boy, which was a Kickstarter book released in 2012. It was marketed as being 10 years in the making. I wish I owned a copy. I'll have to jump on eBay after the stream. I honestly don't know very much about this book. just that it's over 200 pages and nearly doubled its sales goal. So I Googled the book and found a review, which I'm about to read to you, not having read it beforehand. Now, this review is by Thomas Negovin. What Michael has crafted with his masterpiece, The Fracture of the Universal Boy, is, and I say this without the slightest hesitation, more aligned with symbolist literature such as Joris Karl Huysmans' 1891 novel Les Bas, Down There, or The Damned, than anything else I can think of. The poet Stephanie Mallarme articulated the scope in the term symbolism, stating, "Suggestion, that is the dream. And the dream awakes surreal, hyper-real elements that make up the fracture of the universal boy have absolutely nothing to do with anything I've ever seen happen in comics. I don't know yet how to sum it up in a brief passage, but the random fragments in my head are this. 1. People, comics readers especially, will generally hate this book. Angel raping? Check. Drug fiends under the swamp water? Check. False happy endings with eviscerated eye sockets? Oh yes. Seriously, it's commercial suicide. 2. Like Schiller said and Klimt repeated, it is the artist's duty to raise and expand the consciousness of the public, not to feed them whatever smooth flavors they order. 3. This is not an easy read. It's harsh, melodramatic, overbearing, passionate, and captures in crystalline fashion exactly the experiences of the artist, saying everything while revealing nothing. In short, it is, by definition, a perfect piece of art. Its sentiments are literally timeless, but it could only have been created today. Its message would be equally as potent in 1810, 1910, 2010, and 2110. But before that, there was an innovative idea that Mort Todd attempted at Marvel. Comics with record shop crossover appeal. In addition to The Last Temptation featuring Alice Cooper, written by Neil Gaiman and drawn by Zulli, he also got a comic out about KRS-One before Marvel put the kibosh on the experiment. And that KRS-One book was drawn by Kyle Baker, and the art is fantastic. I've only seen the cover, but I'll share it with you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. And I quote, "When the license to their Alice Cooper book had become available again and Neil brought it in my way, blessed fortune. The Last Temptation had been published by Marvel in color, and to be honest, I hadn't noticed it. But when Michael sent me his original art to the story, I effing noticed. Not to fault Marvel, because it was just their way to publish everything in color in less than great paper, but Michael's black and white art was spectacularly beautiful. He'd drawn the 3 issues, which we turned into a graphic novel, on an old-fashioned duo shade board, and it was glorious." That's Diana Schutz. It was around this time that Neil Gaiman had requested Michael Zulli to work on the penultimate chapter to the Sandman series called The Wake. And I quote, this is Neil Gaiman. We used an iconographic art style for the kindly ones. So The Wake, I wanted to go entirely in the other direction, with a style that was as detailed and naturalistic as possible. I felt Michael Zulli was the best choice for that, and we hadn't worked together since Sandman 13, and I knew he could bring a level of hyper-realism to the story that would be perfectly matching what I had in mind. The accuracy of that judgment can be seen in his first 7 pages, with his wonderful illustrations of the different birds and the necropolis Letharge and the endless constructing Elbis. I wanted to go a step further on this final storyline, though, and so started lobbying for DC to publish directly from Michael's pencils. Michael used to send me his penciled pages, and they'd be breathtaking. And then they'd come back after being inked, and there would inevitably be some loss of detail, which saddened me. Inking came about because it's easier to reproduce dark lines than feathery pencil work. But by 1995, I felt that technology was at a point where anything could be scanned in, even pencils. DC was very doubtful, so Michael drew a test page of death with an eagle. We scanned it in and colored it, and the page that resulted was absolutely gorgeous, with no loss of detail. Therefore, DC ultimately acceded to the idea and let Michael do issues 70 through 73 in pencils only, with no inker. I'd say it's the only time readers got a sense of what Michael really does and the stuff actually looks like. In 2015, Puma Blues was finally gathered under one cover. Issues 1 through 23 and a new, I believe it was 40 pages were drawn and written for the publication to wrap things up. It also features a lot of the art, rather all of the art from the benefit issue, which is pretty cool. Now here we have a page from the new re-released, or for the first time released, Rick Veitch version of Swamp Thing. And here we have a death with a Harlequin mask there. Just love the delicate balance of colors. Beautiful stuff. Speaking of beautiful, that green just pops off the screen, and I think it's because of the yellow mixed in with the green. It's really something I can relate to. I used to enjoy going out in nature quite a bit. And we have an angel here. Once again, look at those background colors. That delicate fade there in the background. It's beautiful. This kind of reminds me of the work of Jeffrey Catherine Jones. I'm sure that she was an influence on Zulli's work. And here we have Oscar Wilde sitting with Cerebus, sipping on some absinthe, I would imagine. I feel he probably felt he owed Dave Sim for the years of struggles and the years of support. Now this, I'm not even sure where it's from. I think he may have worked on a Batman black and white issue, but I could be wrong. But Batman's very small on the page, but that is definitely Batman. You don't often see him in a non-urban environment. There's his signature, I guess. I must have had a reason that I selected this one. But I do like the line mark there. It makes me miss my old tools as I do a lot of my work digitally right now. Here we go. This reminds me of the pre-Raphaelites. Lots and lots of detail. Lots of hidden messages in the symbolism, which I will not even think to translate, and I'll probably embarrass myself. Now this page I really like. I really like the fact that most of the action is towards the bottom, and there's so much empty space towards the top. But there's obvious clouds and birds and small little details there. But it really makes great use of the empty white space. Now this page reminded me of Barry Windsor Smith's The Beguiling pages. The colors are so perfect and beautiful. There's something really appealing about the woman. And that pale flesh. And this is Animus. He is a demon in his issues of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had read earlier that he was influenced a great deal by yes, Jones's Belling the Slayer. I believe I have those coming up here. Yes, here we go. He definitely did something all his own. But I can see from the detritus of the flesh that he might have been inspired by the idea, but he totally went his own direction. Here's another one upcoming. This one feels more like that one, but I still say he did his own thing. But yeah, looking at his sketches, I can definitely get a Jones vibe from all of his work. It's just beautiful stuff. I would be inspired as well. Alright, here's the Cerebus one again, but this time I put a quote at the bottom. When critics disagree, the artist is in accord with himself. Oscar Wilde. That goes to all those people that naysayed his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles run, which I consider one of my favorite comics. Here's another one with where I just love the space at the bottom and how empty it is, as compared to where the figure and the horse are towards the top. This reminds me of Barry Windsor Smith's Monsters, actually. Very delicate black work. And here we go. Here's a colored version of one of his Ninja Turtles pages, featuring the ill-fated dove. Spoilers for you folks who've never read that story. It is it's very dark stuff. It's very impressive. I highly recommend reading that stuff. Alright, this was a signed book plate for the fractal, the fracture of the Universal Boy. I believe there may have been two remarks or two two of these little placards, I guess. I'm not sure if I captured both of them or not. No, because next is one of the Ninja Turtles. As you can see, the images were selected randomly. Sometimes they might line up with what I've said. Other times, I'm sure you're wondering, why is he saying this now when he should have said this 20 minutes ago? I love the chess symbols. And I like the flow of this piece as well. This one reminds me of Mouse Guard almost. Well, we're almost out of time here. Oh, here's the cover of that book. The Fracture of the Universal Boy. So, if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. We'll have some future biographies of other great artists in the industry. And I want to say thank you guys very much. Peace.